What's up, everybody? It is a beautiful day here in Montreal. We are still in the midst of a pandemic, and we are also in the midst of a revolution. There is a paradigm shift that is happening culturally. As one of my friends calls it, there is a cold civil war happening, and that's an unfortunate yet factual depiction, I would say, of what is happening. Um, there's a lot of discussion about things needing to change and how that change may come to be. There is a lot of discussion about the loss of lives. There's still people being murdered. There's still people being lynched. Um, and all the while, there are companies that are continuing to pretend like they care about the things that are happening to people in the world, uh, specifically things that are happening to black people in this world. And the reason I bring that up is because one thing really rubbed me the wrong way. There's one thing specifically that I saw that genuinely made me really mad about what companies say and what they do and how they think about presenting themselves, and why it's important to pretend to be on the right side of history when you don't believe in being on the right side of history. And that's the thing that really sucks. It really sucks to watch people pretend to care about Black Lives Mattering, about movements, about systemic racism, when they just months ago were being racist and were taking advantage of situations, and we're trying to have laws play in their favor in ways that I like. When I look at some of the things that have been done or said recently by people, and I'm speaking specifically about companies in like the media sphere, because that's the thing. I'm not gonna pretend like I know more about all the things happening in the world. I'm not gonna pretend like I'm the most informed person. I'm not. I do my best to keep informed and to look up things and to keep myself well read. But I know that I'm not the best. I know that. The things that I find the most interesting are the behind the scenes deals of what is happening in media and television and entertainment, and some of those things give me an insight into how companies approach black content. And you can see from their practices over time whether or not they actually care about black lives or people of color or LGBTQ communities, or the LGBTQ community in general. Because it's very easy to put up a pride flag during Pride Month on your logo. It's very easy to say you're going to donate $100 million to social justice plans. What's hard is to actually try and change a broken system that you benefit from, to one that benefits everyone equally, so that you aren't benefiting more than other people. So that brings me specifically to discussing Comcast. So Comcast, for those of you who don't know, is this huge company. We've talked about them on Geektastic Cypher quite a bit in the past. They were one of the contenders when Fox was up in the air. Comcast and Disney were having a bidding war. Comcast is the reason that Disney paid $71.6 billion for Fox. Comcast recognized Fox as an opportunity to acquire Sky Media, which is a foothold in the UK and in other markets around the world for television. Some of the shows that you might watch here in North America may be Sky produced series. If the series are British, some of those British series, they have Sky One. They do Sky Sports. Sky is a pretty big company. And I know a lot of people know that, and I know that a lot of people actually maybe a lot of people don't know that. Maybe it's something that I know because I pay attention to Comcast and to Byron Allen and to some of the things that have been going on recently. And one of the things that Comcast did recently was Comcast. So Byron Allen is a black mogul who has multiple television stations. I'm just trying to see here. Allen's Entertainment Studios. Comcast has reached a deal with Allen's Entertainment Studios to pick up 3 of his cable channels: Comedy.tv, Recipe.tv, JusticeCentral.tv. I know that he has other channels as well. Allen filed a $20 billion lawsuit against the media giant in 2015, asserting that the media giant violated civil rights laws by refusing to carry his portfolio of 7 niche cable channels. Comcast vehemently denied that race played any role in its decision. They were willing to take the case to the Supreme Court, in which the justices, which is the Supreme Court, sent the case back to the 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, which had early ruled Allen need only reach an early to meet discrimination standards to consider the matter once again. So the Supreme Court handed a win to Comcast on Monday. This is in March. This happened March. Monday the 23rd in March. Funny enough, that was the first day I did a Not a Journalist, a solo one. It was also the first day that I had gotten laid off, which was the reason that I had started doing them. So that was that's kind of a crazy coincidence. But so the Supreme Court handed a win to Comcast on Monday in a long-running racial discrimination suit brought by the black media mogul Byron Allen, who alleged the cable giant discriminated against him when it refused to carry channels operated by his television network, Entertainment Studios. So the court agreed with the Comcast upholding a high bar for bringing suits under an 1866 Civil Rights Act. The justice sent back the case to the Ninth Circuit. Okay. So this is the part that I'm trying to find, because I remember when it first came up, the way Comcast was going about this was that if they won the case, it would undo a civil rights finding. Here we go. Found it. So Comcast was going to challenge an 1866 law that protested against racial discrimination. And had they won, it would have set back civil rights laws 150 some odd years. The Supreme Court hearing one of the most important civil rights cases to come before its terms, in which 32 sorry, my bad, guys. I'm just trying to find the exact, because I had the note here and then unfortunately my computer crashed. If some of you noticed, I had tried to start a broadcast right before and the computer crashed, and I had all the windows open, but I didn't save them. And when I opened back, I didn't hit restore, as Google often does, gives you the opportunity to bring back your previous windows if if your browser crashes. And I mistakenly did not click the right thing because I was kind of in a rush and I wanted to get this done as quickly as possible to get back on air, because I wanted to go on at around 6 o'clock. The Supreme Court decision will hinge on its interpretation of a bedrock civil rights statute, the Civil Rights Act of 1866. Immediately following the Civil War and the ratification of the 13th Amendment, Congress enacted the Civil Rights Act of 1866, a wide-ranging banning on racial discrimination. Section 1981 is one of the statute's most critical critical provisions ensuring that all persons within the jurisdiction of the United States shall have the same rights to make and enforce contracts as is enjoyed by white citizens. The goal of this section was to free the contracting process from the burdens of discrimination and ensure that newly freed slaves were guaranteed the same opportunity to contract as whites. That was what Comcast was trying to push to go all the way to the Supreme Court, in which, if they won, the idea would be that you didn't have to set the precedents or prove the discrimination based solely on race, and would reduce the effectiveness of the arguments of racism in America. This is how Comcast was trying to push Byron Allen all the way. They were trying to push it because they didn't want to appear as a prejudiced company. Obviously, no one wanted to. I wouldn't imagine it would have been a good look for them. So when I saw on June 8th that Comcast was now giving $100 million to social justice plans amid George Floyd's protests, and on the 11th came to an agreement with Byron Allen to carry 3 out of his, 7 or whatever. It also covers the retransmission consent rights to 14 local TV stations that Allen Media Group has acquired during the past few months. So I think the thing that really bothers me here is the idea that if you throw enough money at something, and if you pretend long enough, people will forget what kind of moral compass or what kind of pillar your company stands on. If you were willing to fight a 1866 civil rights law to try and win, instead of just, and don't get me wrong, I understand from the perspective of someone who's dealing with the law. If I have a company, I'm going to obviously fight as much as possible. I'm going to try and fight as much as possible to show that my company is not in the wrong. But to try and go after civil rights laws from 150 years ago so that it undermines at least to me, it feels like it undermines the nature of what the law was implying, that all men are created equal, and do away with the separation of race, and to try and go and fight that with that particular law at your side to try and make your point just seems somewhat disgusting. And then a few months later, now that people are really upset about what's happening in the world, to turn around and say, here's $100 million. First of all, get out of here with $100 million. I'm sorry. I know, I don't get me wrong. I know $100 million is a lot of money. I understand that. But you were willing to pay $60 billion for Fox. You have money. Should you have to donate $100 million? You don't have to. But if you actually want to see change happen, you could donate more. Or better yet, instead of donating or setting aside, that's the other thing that I don't like. When they say we're setting aside this money, so who's going to oversee how the money is spent? What watchdogs? Am I supposed to be one of the watchdogs because I'm paying attention to this stuff? Am I supposed to be the one that's like checking and looking into all the details of the minutes from your board that you present to the public to see if they're actually following through on this? Because that's the other thing, guys. There's a lot of this stuff that they're not going to follow through on. They can say it, they can have a headline, but they're not actually going to follow through on it. And that's the part that really sucks to me, that it's that easy to say these things and to then just let it go. It gets to just be something that you completely, it's just lip service. It's just lip service. And that's the part I think I find the saddest. I don't like the idea that lip service is being fed to the black movement. I don't like the idea that, you know, when people say Black Lives Matter, that there are other people whispering it too who are just saying it. Oh, I'll give you this example. What they're doing is like when you were in the choir when you were a kid and you didn't know the lyrics to that song because you didn't study or you didn't prepare. And now your choir is up there and you're just mouthing the words. You're just nothing. That's what it's like when I see Comcast doing stuff like this. That's what it's like when I see a lot of these companies doing stuff like this. People are still using slave labor. You realize that? That people are still using slave labor. They have people in prison that they are essentially using as slaves. I say essentially because I'm trying to be nice, but no, they're using them as slaves. And then when other people are just like, oh, well, they're crooks and criminals and they committed a crime and they get what they deserve. But then those people don't want to look at the larger scale issues that led to criminal activity in these communities, that led to, and there's no one wants to take responsibility. For God's sakes, the U.S. government sold crack in black communities in the 80s. Admitted it. Oh, man. Oh, my God. And I think the craziest part about all this is when the government admits to doing something wrong, there are people who are just like, oh, well, they had to do that. Like, there are people who excuse everything. Everything. And then in Canada, it's the same thing. In Canada, we once rolled out the military in an area to try and force at people of, actually, no, the First Nations people. They tried to push the First Nations people off their land so that they could build on the land, a golf course. Think about that. With the pipeline situation, at least the government's argument was it's a quicker way, and it's still not a good excuse, but they're trying to use the statement that it will bring in more revenue into the country. What was the golf course going to do? Like we are in such a weird place right now as not even just a country, countries, Canada, the United States, the West. The West is dealing with a lot right now. And I feel like it's there's a lot of people giving lip service to it, but there's not a lot of people actually meaning what they say. And I think we need to be more careful and wary of that. We need to be more mindful of that. We need to think about it. We need to really think about what we're seeing and what people are saying and if they mean it. We have to be mindful of how people are talking and the history of those companies and those people. Can a person change? Yes. Can a company change from March till June? No. I'm sorry. You can't have a business practice the way they do for decades. Decades. And then in the span of a couple months, they all of a sudden find God. You know what I mean? It takes time to change. As humans, we take time to evolve. The smaller we are, the easier it is to change. So if a company has 3 employees, it's quite easy to make those changes. Comcast is a multi-billion-dollar company that has been functioning as it has for decades and does not just change overnight or in 3 months. They don't. So consider that. Consider the lip service. I'm not telling you to ban anybody. I'm not telling you not to support anything. I'm not telling you if they actually do start initiatives, yes, take advantage of the initiatives. If you are a black person and this company is now handing out money to create more content in your community, as long as they're not forcing you to change the message to their liking, because that's another thing that companies do to control. Let's say I was wrong. Let's say we actually do see the money go out. We look at all the books and we see where all the money's going. But if that money comes with stipulations, rules, and regulations that force people to fall in line with their vision of what black people are, or what people of color are, or what LGBTQ is, then that's a problem too. So if they're going to give money or create programs with no strings attached, and let black people create in spaces on par with their colleagues and other individuals, I'm okay with that. I still don't trust them, but I would take the money. And then someone's going to be like, well, why? How could you take the money? You don't trust them. Because I want to use the money to build something better. And as long as there are no strings attached, I would like to. Yes, you're right. I don't trust them. There's a good chance that there will be secret strings. Hopefully, I can get myself a great lawyer who will look over every inch of the paperwork, and I'll make sure I'm protected. And at the end of the day, who knows what they're going to do? Hollywood's Hollywood. You can have a show. You can say you're creating a show and then completely just back out and be like, this doesn't work for us. It's not that we didn't give you the money to create it. We just don't think this show works on our network. That's something else they do in Hollywood. Sometimes networks will buy pilots and then shelve them, and you never see them. Never. They never see the light of day. They are bought and they are put on a shelf. And they are spoken of in whispers in back rooms about how wonderful they were, but you never see them because that's how it works. I once heard a story from a writer on a podcast that I listened to, ATX? I don't remember the name, where a network bought a series from someone and let them shoot a pilot and shelved it because they had another series that was similar and they didn't want that series competing at another network. And the first show that they had was already further ahead in production, and the second show, the writer who was working on it didn't know about the first show. So this person who worked hard and had dreams about building and writing a series that would get seen by the public because of it was their voice, it was their vision, it was everything they wanted, and they finally got it made, only for it to be shelved because the network had something similar and they didn't want it to compete. So what happens? What's going to happen? Comcast sets aside $100 million. Social justice plan amid George Floyd protests. $100 million. What does that mean? Who knows? You have to wait and see. I don't know for a fact that any of this money is going to be used to produce content anyways. What does it say here? On Monday, said in a blog that the Philadelphia media giant would set aside $75 million in cash and $25 million in advertising inventory to fight injustice against any race, ethnicity, gender, identity, sexual orientation, or ability. Yeah, the funds are in space, will be distributed over the next 3 years. Part of the plan is to partner with provided grants to organizations such as the National Urban League, the Equal Justice Initiative, the NAACP. Okay. So we'll see. We'll see. Again, I don't trust them. Because if they, again, as of November 2019, they were willing to fight against a 150-year-old civil rights law in court. They were willing to take it to the Supreme Court and possibly turn back civil rights in a way that is unconscionable. But here we are in June 2020 during a pandemic and unrest, and now all of a sudden they're down for the cause. They must think we are all kinds of stupid. They're not the only ones, guys. This is just the one that upset me the most that I'm talking about because I have this platform. If you guys have your own platforms, please. If you have other ones that you want to discuss, please. Even if you don't have a platform, message me at Brian Holidae, BrianHollidae. Shoot me a line. Tell me about yours. I'll have you on to discuss yours. Is there a network? Is there a company? Are you a clothing brand? A baby food company? I don't care. But if they're out here waving a flag of unity and have been in back rooms trying to destroy black people and LGBTQ communities and brown communities and Asian communities every chance they get, come and tell me. I'll let you talk on the platform about it. Because we got to discuss this stuff. We have to. Because this stuff's not going away. I've seen less people posting about Black Lives Matter. And that's okay. I understand. It makes sense that people would not want it to be the only thing they talk about. But it's not going away. It's not. Because black people aren't going away. So our lives will always matter. That's the point. Every time I see them in the public eye talking about basketball coming back and this and that and the other thing, and I keep getting this awkward feeling of like, man, all the distractions are going to come back. Montreal just announced that they're going to allow crowds of 50 people in indoor spaces. So now restaurants are going to open back and maybe bars are going to be opening back and movie theaters and small venues. And I'm just worried about those distractions pulling people away from some of the things that we've been talking about and some of the things that need to be addressed. In any case, guys, that's all I had to say today. I didn't want to make it too long. I definitely want to come and talk to you guys. I haven't done one of these in a minute. I miss doing them. Doing them daily was fun. Unfortunately, now that I'm working, I can't do them daily. I am going to try and do shows once a week. If you guys have liked the episodes, you can continue to check them out on BrianHollidae.com, BrianHollidae.com. And you can follow me on social media. Same thing, at Brian Holidae. Yeah. So that's everything, guys. Thank you so much. And, keep fighting. Keep speaking up. And keep checking. And be watchdogs. That's the important thing. Be the watchdogs. Pay attention to what people are doing and saying. And research it. Look it up for yourself. If you see a company offering money and you think that seems sus, maybe it is. Anyways, guys, I'm gone. Thank you so much. Peace, everybody.